Hello students, in this session we will be doing the vertebral column and thoracic cage from the chapter Human Anatomy. This is Dr. Hemlata A from Maharani Science College for Women. So we will start with the vertebral column. Vertebral column, also called as the backbone. On the right side you can see the picture of the backbone. It is actually curved bone like an shape of the alphabet S. It's made up of vertebrae, which are the units of the vertebral column. Totally there are 33 vertebrae, out of which 24 of them are movable. They are called as movable vertebrae. 9 of them are fused, and the 9 which are fused will form the sacrum and the coccyx. So 24 movable vertebrae plus 9 fused vertebrae together will form 33 vertebrae. Vertebral column is made up of 33 vertebrae. It is also called as the spine. It will extend from the base of the skull up to the pelvis. So if you remember the occipital region of the skull, where there is an opening called as foramen magnum, through which the medulla oblongata will come down and it will become the spinal cord. This spinal cord will pass through the backbone. In the center of the backbone there is a canal called as vertebral canal, and inside this vertebral canal the spinal cord is located. If you look at the vertebral column, it is made up of 5 regions. The first part in the neck region is called as the cervical region or the cervical spine, where there are 7 vertebrae called as cervical vertebrae. So there are 7 cervical vertebrae present in the spine, 7 cervical vertebrae present in the vertebral column. So the next part is called as the thoracic part, where you have the vertebrae which are called as the thoracic vertebrae, which forms the thoracic spine. There are 12 vertebrae in the thoracic region. So there are 7 in the cervical region and 12 in the thoracic region. Next is the lumbar vertebrae. 5 of them are there. Then you have the sacrum, 5 of them. Then the last one, coccygeal, where you find 4 vertebrae are present. So in the cervical region 7, that is the neck region, followed by thoracic 12, lumbar 5, and sacrum 5, coccyx 4. So the spine, which is also called as the spinal column or the vertebral column or the backbone, is a strong bone which is also flexible, which is located in the center on the dorsal side of the human body, and it supports the head and the trunk region. It will help to keep the head and trunk straight and allows the neck to bend back and front, and also for your body to bend back and front and twist. All these is possible because of the flexible nature of the spine. The spine has got S shape and it acts like a spring, and you can bend and go back straight. You can bend up and down without the bone breaking. That is because of the flexibility nature of the bone. The last part of the spinal canal is made up of 9 vertebrae which are fused to form 2 bones. One is called as the sacrum and the other one is called as the coccyx, and the remaining 26 spine, as I already told, are movable parts of the spine. If you look at an adult, the vertebral column will measure somewhere between 60 to 70 centimeter. It is a flexible bone made up of 33 vertebrae. In between the vertebrae, there is a pad-like structure, cushion-like structure called as intervertebral disc, which is made up of a fibrocartilage. So there are 5 different regions which can be differentiated in the vertebral column, as I've already told you: cervical, thoracic, lumbar, sacral, and coccyx. The function of the vertebral column is to protect the spinal cord, which is present inside the spinal canal of the vertebral column. It supports the body. It will carry the weight of the body, which is there above the pelvis. Pelvis is the lower girdle to which your legs are attached. So above that, whatever weight is there in the trunk region and the head region, that will be carried, or that will be supported by the vertebral column, and it forms the central axis of the body. The vertebral column forms the central axis of the body, and it helps in movement, both in maintaining the posture and while moving, it helps to support the body. Now this is the picture of the spinal cord. You can see there the topmost part is the cervical vertebrae, 7 of them are there. Second is thoracic, 12 vertebrae are there. Lumbar 5, sacrum 5, and coccyx 4 or 5 bones. This is how the spine looks. It looks like a single piece of bone, but actually it is made up of number of units called as the vertebrae. On the left side you are seeing the entire spinal cord. On the right side you are seeing the individual vertebrae, starting with cervical vertebrae, then thoracic, then lumbar, then you have the sacrum and coccyx. We will look at each one of them in detail. The vertebrae, between the 2 vertebrae, here in this picture on the right side, you can see the cushion-like structure, which is the intervertebral disc, which is made up of tough fibrocartilage, and this will act like a cushion and helps in absorbing any kind of pressure or injury while movement. If there is some kind of pressure, that will be absorbed by the intervertebral disc. So spinal joints is the joint between the 2 vertebrae, and they don't have large movement like your hands and legs where you can fold and twist and turn, but it gives flexibility just to bend forward, backward, sideward, like that. To that extent it is flexible. So there are facets on the vertebrae which will articulate with one another and maintain the position of the spine, and it will also help in preventing any kind of slipping of the disc or the torsion of the disc. Now we will look at the structure of the vertebrae. So this, I will just show the picture. This is how a single vertebrae will look like. So we will look at the different parts of the body of the vertebrae. So first of all, if you look at a single vertebrae, it will have 2 parts. One on the anterior side, which is called as the body. The other on the posterior side, which is called as the vertebral arch or the neural arch. The neural arch will have a canal called as neural canal, and inside the canal the spine or the spinal cord is present. The anterior part of the vertebrae is called as the body. This is the one which will bear the weight, and the vertebrae, if you look at the vertebral column, as you move from neck to down part of the vertebral column, the body of the vertebrae will become bigger in size. So in the neck region, the body is smaller. As you go down to the lumbar region, the body of the vertebrae will become bigger in size. That is to support the increased weight towards the hip region. So this is about the first part, that is the body. The body will have superior and inferior aspects, and it will be lined with hyaline cartilage. The two vertebrae which are placed next to each other are separated by intervertebral disc, which is made up of a fibrocartilage. The posterior part of the vertebra is called as the vertebral arch, which will have a lateral aspect and a posterior aspect. Then there is vertebral foramen. Foramen is an opening through which many nerves and the cord will pass through. We will look at each one of them in detail when we study the different vertebrae in 5 different regions. So apart from this, the vertebral arch will have slight extensions called as prominences. It is this prominence which will give the site for the attachment of muscles and ligaments. One of the important function of the skeleton is to provide the surface for the attachment of the muscles. So you will see that the vertebral arch will have bony prominences to which muscles and ligaments will be attached. Then there is spinous process present at the posterior end, where the arch joins and meets at the point there is a spinous process. From the body, two transverse processes will arise laterally. In the thoracic vertebrae, the transverse process will articulate with the ribs. Then you have pedicle, which will connect the vertebral body to the transverse process. Lamina, which connects the transverse process with spinous process. Then there are articular processes. There are two articular processes, superior articular process and inferior articular process. And there is also articular process which is located at the intersection of lamina and pedicle. Now we will look at each one of them, whatever we have done in the previous 2 slides. Look at the picture on the left side. Down what you have, which is present on the anterior side, that is called as the body or centrum of the vertebrae. This is on the anterior side. Then next to that posterior side, you have the neural arch or the vertebral arch. Now the body is the main part which will bear the weight, which will give support to your back and the head, and also it bears the weight. Immediately in front of the body, you have what is called as pedicle. This pedicle is connecting the centrum to the transverse process. You can see two laterally extended process called as transverse process. So the body is connected to the transverse process and the connection is called as pedicle. In between this, present in the region of the pedicle, there is a facet called as superior articular process, and below that there will be inferior articular process, which is not visible here. You have to turn the vertebrae. You can do that in your practical class. So what this superior articular process will do, when the vertebrae is placed one above the other, so let us say the first vertebra and second vertebra, we will take that. The superior articular process of the second one will articulate with inferior articular process of the first one. So what it is, when you take 1 and 2 vertebra, the superior articular process of the second one will articulate with inferior articular process of the first one. So like that, each vertebrae which are located adjacent to each other will articulate with the help of inferior and superior articular process, and there will be facet for the articulation. One process will fit into the facet and it brings about articulation surface. So you have the body or centrum. Then you have the pedicle, which is connecting the body to the transverse process. In the pedicle region, on the top you have superior articular facet. Down you will have inferior articular facet. Then the next part is called as the transverse process. So these are two horizontally arising process called as the transverse process. Then in the center at the back you have got spinous process. Now the spinous process is connected to the transverse process by the lamina. So lamina is connecting the spinous process to transverse process. Pedicle is connecting transverse process to the body or centrum of the vertebra, and in between the body and the posterior spinous process is the vertebral arch, and inside the vertebral arch is the vertebral foramen or the vertebral canal through which the spinal cord will pass. Now, if you look at the picture on the right side for you to understand better, the one which is brown in color is the spinous process. The one which is purple in color is the lamina. The one which is green in color is the superior articular process. The one which is green in light green is superior articular process. Dark green is the pedicle, and the one which is maroonish is transverse process, and you can see the body or the centrum. Now the body or the centrum is connected to transverse process with the help of the pedicle, and the spinous process is connected to the transverse process with the help of lamina. Now we will look at the vertebrae in the different parts. First we will look at the cervical vertebrae. Cervical vertebrae is located in the region of the neck. There are 7 cervical vertebrae. First one is called as atlas, second one is called as axis, and cervical vertebrae 3 to 7 will have almost similar structure. First is different, second is different. If you look at the structure, see 3 to 7 will have similar structure. So if you want to describe the structure of a typical cervical vertebra, basically you will be talking about the vertebrae from C3 to C7. So if you look at the vertebrae from C3 to C7, if you look at the body, you will see that the body is smallest in the cervical vertebrae and it is somewhat oblong. If you look at the shape there, it is oblong and it is broad side to side. Means if you look from side to side, it is bigger than from top to bottom. Top to bottom it is narrow, side to side it is big. Then it is enclosing the neural arch. Neural arch will be the largest in the cervical vertebra 1. Then as you go down to the tip of the vertebral column, it becomes smaller and smaller. Body of the vertebrae goes on increasing in size, whereas the neural canal will go on decreasing in size, and it is biggest in the cervical vertebra 1, that is the atlas. But the atlas has got the body which is greatly reduced. The body is greatly reduced in atlas. So what are the characteristic features of this typical cervical vertebra, which is C3 to C7? Body is small, it is oblong in shape, it is broad from side to side, neural arch is big, and if you look at the transverse process, you can see 2 openings there. That opening is called as the foramen cervical, present in the transverse process of the cervical vertebra, through which the blood vessel vertebral artery will pass through. So the foramen is present in the cervical vertebra, which is characteristic feature of cervical vertebra, through which the vertebral artery will pass. And if you look at the spinous process, the typical cervical vertebra will have the spinous process which is split into 2 in the end. This is called as bifurcated spinous process. So if you look at axis, that is the second cervical vertebra, third, fourth, fifth and sixth, all of them will have bifid spinous process, whereas seventh one will have one single undivided spinous process which will end in the form of a tubercle. And sometimes if you look at people who are very thin, you can see on the back of the neck one small projection. That small projection is the projection of this spinous process which is not divided, which is called as tubercle. And this, the name for this tubercle is called as vertebra prominens. So what all you have to remember, the first cervical vertebra is called as atlas. In atlas, the body is greatly reduced, the spinous process is greatly reduced, whereas the vertebral arch is very big in size. And if you look at the atlas, the middle picture here, you will see there are two facets, and these are the facets which will articulate with the condyles present in the occipital region of the skull. The base of the skull is called as occipital region, where you have got two occipital condyles. These two occipital condyles will sit on the facet present in the first cervical vertebra, atlas. So the first cervical vertebra has got atlas, which has got two articulating facets which will articulate with the condyles present in the occipital region of the skull. So what are the characteristic features of the first cervical vertebra? Body is greatly reduced, spinous process is greatly reduced, neural arch is very big. There are two articular facets to articulate with the occipital condyles. The second cervical vertebra is called as axis. Here body is present, spine is present, which is bifid in nature, and it has got a small peg-like structure called as dens or odontoid process. Now, if you look at the atlas, on the body there is one facet in the center. It is on this facet the odontoid process of the second cervical vertebra will sit, and this will help in moving the neck. You can turn your neck right and left because of this odontoid process of the second cervical vertebra, which has got an articular facet in the first cervical vertebra. On the body of the first cervical vertebra, that is the atlas, there is a facet, and here the odontoid process of the axis will sit and it will turn around, and that's how it gives rotation to the neck. This you have to remember in the second cervical vertebra axis. 3rd to 7 is typical cervical vertebra. The body is oblong. The neural spine, that is the spinous process, is bifid, and neural arch is big. In the 7th cervical vertebra, the spinous process is not bifid, and it is called as vertebra prominens. Vertebra prominens. And the cervical vertebrae has got the foramen through which the vertebral artery will pass through. So this is the picture of a typical cervical vertebra. You can see the body, which is oblong. Then you can see the neural arch and the vertebral foramen or the spinal canal. You can see the bifid spinous process. You can see the lamina, where it is connecting the spinous process to the transverse process, and you can see the pedicle, which is connecting the transverse process to the body, and you can see the superior articulating surface, and down will be the inferior articulating surface. In the first cervical vertebra, that is the atlas, superior articular surface will not be there. Why? Because there is no vertebrae above, so it will not have superior articular surface, but it will have two facets to articulate with the condyles in the occipital region. Then in the transverse process, you can see the foramen through which the vertebral artery will pass. Now we will look at the vertebrae in the second region, that is in the thoracic region, where there are 12 vertebrae called as thoracic vertebrae. It is if you look at the body of the thoracic vertebrae, it is bigger in size, and as you go down, it goes on increasing in size. Body of the vertebrae goes on increasing in size when you move down. If you look at the body of the vertebrae, it is heart shaped. The transverse process is thick and strong, and there are two articular facets in the thoracic vertebrae which will articulate with the rib. In the rib, there is one part called as the head of the rib, another part called as the tubercle of the rib. So, the head and the tubercle of the rib will articulate with the body and the transverse process of the thoracic vertebrae. So, there are two ribs, one is attaching on the right side, one on the left side. So, on the right side, there are two facets, one on the body, one on the transverse process. On the body, it will articulate with the head of the rib. On the transverse process, it will articulate with the tubercle of the rib. Similarly, on the left side, there will be two articular facets which will articulate with the left side of the rib. So, this joint where the joint is formed between the rib and the thoracic vertebra is called as vertebrocostal joint. The neural arch is slightly smaller compared to that of the cervical vertebrae. The spinous process is long and generally it will be pointing downward. In case of cervical vertebra, it was short and bifid. Here it is long and facing downward. So top you can see the picture of the cervical vertebrae. Down you can look at the labeled diagram. You can see the heart-shaped body. Body is connected to transverse process with pedicle. Then there are two articulating facets. One in the body which will articulate with the head of the rib. One on the transverse process which will articulate with the tubercle of the rib. Then you have the transverse process which is thick and strong. Then you have superior articulating process which will articulate with the inferior articulating facet of the previous rib, previous vertebrae. Then you have the transverse process and the spinous process which is long and directed downwards. Now coming to the next region, that is the lumbar region, where there are 5 vertebrae. Lumbar vertebrae 1 to lumbar vertebrae 5. The body of the lumbar vertebrae is the largest of all and it is having kidney shaped body. The spinous process is short, flat, and it resembles a small axe called as hatchet. That's why it is called as hatchet shaped spinous process. The transverse process is long and slender. The last lumbar vertebrae will form a joint with the sacrum, and this joint is called as lumbosacral joint. The joint between the sacrum and the 5th lumbar vertebrae is called as lumbosacral joint. So this is how the lumbar vertebrae looks, and down you can look at the labeled diagram of the lumbar vertebrae. Kidney shaped body, pedicle, transverse process, lamina, spinous process, vertebral arch, and the body is big in size and kidney shaped. So here you can compare the 3 vertebrae which we have spoken so far, cervical, thoracic and lumbar. Look how the shape of the body differs from oblong to heart shaped to kidney shaped, and how the size increases from cervical to thoracic to lumbar. The body size increases, and look at the vertebral arch. Vertebral arch is biggest in the cervical vertebrae, smaller in thoracic, much smaller in lumbar vertebrae. Then if you look at the transverse process, it is slightly smaller in the cervical, much bigger in thoracic, and long and slender in lumbar vertebrae. The spine is bifid in cervical. It is pointed and downward bent in thoracic, and in lumbar it is short and hatchet shaped. So some more pictures for you all. You can just sit and look at each of the vertebrae, the differences between all of them. I'll be sending the PPT. You can look at these pictures. Now coming to the sacrum. So here sacrum is formed by the fusion of 5 vertebrae. All of them are fused together to form the sacral vertebrae. 5 of them are fused to form the sacrum. If you look at the shape of the sacrum, it is triangular in shape, and the last part is the coccyx. So the upper part is the sacrum, the lower part is the coccyx, which will support the tail. Since in case of human beings, tail is absent, the coccyx is rudimentary. It is not well developed like in other vertebrae which have got tail. There it is well developed, but here it is rudimentary. So first we will look at the sacrum, triangular. The apex is present down and the base is present on the top. There are two surfaces. What we are seeing now is the anterior surface, which is concave in shape. You can see there are 4 ridges present. These 4 ridges will show the point where the vertebrae have fused. 5 vertebrae are fused, so you can see 4 transverse ridges, which is the place where the vertebrae are fused. Right on the top, on the anterior border, you have got sacral promontory. It is here where it will articulate with the last lumbar vertebrae to form the lumbosacral joint. So sacral promontory is the region where it will articulate with the if you look at the sacral promontory, you can look at the shape like that of the body of the lumbar vertebra. So here is the region in which the sacrum connects to the lumbar to form sacrolumbar joint. Then you have got sacral canals present on either side, and it is through these sacral canals the sacral nerves will leave. Then you have the ventral sacral foramina, again through which the nerves will come out. If you look at the spinous process of the sacral vertebrae, they are all very poorly developed and fused to one another. Then at the apex of the sacrum, it joins with the coccyx. So you will see the sacrum is joining with the at the apex tip of the sacrum, it joins with the coccyx. And on the sides of the sacrum is present between the pelvic girdle. If you look at the pelvic girdle, the girdle which will form the hip bones, there are 2 bones in the hip region. It is the right innominate bone and the left innominate bone. And in between the right and left innominate bone, then you see that the sacrum is located at the junction of the right and left innominate bones, and this joint is formed on the side of the sacrum. So the lateral side of the sacrum will join with the innominate bone to form sacroiliac joint. If you look at the pelvic girdle, it is made up of 3 bones, ilium, ischium and pubis. In that, the sacrum will attach to the ilium of the pelvic bone or the innominate bone. So you call this as sacroiliac joint. So what all you have to remember here, the 5 sacral vertebrae are fused to form sacrum, which is triangular, apex pointing downward, base facing upward. You can see the sacral promontory where the sacrolumbar joint will be formed. Then you can see the sacral canals, sacral foramina through which the nerves will pass. Spinous process is rudimentary. Apex will articulate with coccyx, and the lateral side of the sternum will join to form sacroiliac joint between the sacrum and the ilium part of the pelvis bone. So if you count here, you can count there are 5 sacral vertebrae, and at the junction of the 2 vertebrae you can see one transverse ridge. So there are 4 transverse ridges like that. Then you can see the ventral sacral foramina through which the nerves will pass out. Now this is the posterior view of the sacrum. This will be convex. Here you can see there is a median sacral crest. This is formed by the fusion of the spinous process of the sacral vertebra. Sacral crest is formed by the fusion of the spinous process of the vertebra. Then you can see superior articular facet, which will articulate with the transverse process of with the inferior articular process of the last lumbar vertebra. The last lumbar vertebra, there is a inferior articular process which will articulate with the superior articular process of the sacrum. Then you have sacral hiatus, which is the inferior part of the sacrum, and there you can also enter into the sacral canal from there, and the sacral canal is very small and the spinal cord will end over there. So this is the posterior view of the sacrum, which is convex, which has got a median sacral crest formed by the fusion of the spinous process of the sacral vertebra. Then you can see the lateral sacral crest formed by the fusion of the transverse process of the sacral vertebra. So the lateral sacral crest is formed by the fusion of the transverse process of the sacral vertebra, whereas median sacral crest is formed by fusion of spinous process of the sacral vertebra. Superior articular facet, which will articulate with the inferior articular process of the last lumbar vertebra, and the lowermost part is called as sacral hiatus, and there also you can enter into the spinal canal and spinal cord will terminate in this part of the vertebral column. Now coming to the coccyx. Coccyx is rudimentary. You cannot differentiate body, you cannot differentiate transverse process, vertebral arch, spinal process. All of them is greatly reduced and it doesn't serve any function. Actually, it's a vestigial organ because human beings doesn't have tail. It simply ends, the sacrum will end in the coccyx, formed by the fusion of 4 or 5 vertebrae. All of them are fused to form one single vertebrae called as coccyx, and this coccyx will articulate with the sacrum on the top. So with that we completed the vertebral column. Now the next part, what we have got to study in the axial skeleton. So in the first class we did the skull, which is a part of the axial skeleton. Then we did vertebral column. Now we will look at the thoracic cage. The thoracic cage is the bony structure which is supporting the thoracic cavity, inside which important organs like the lungs, heart and upper part of the digestive tract is located. If you look at the thoracic cavity, the shape of the thoracic cavity is like a cone. The cavity is broader on the lower side compared to the upper side, and it is longer at the back compared to the front. Thoracic cage is formed by bones. The first one is the sternum, which is also called as the breastbone. Then you have cartilages called as costal cartilages, and then the ribs. All of them together will form the thoracic cage. There are 12 vertebra in the region of the thoracic vertebrae. Thoracic region of the back, there are 12 thoracic vertebrae to which the ribs will be attached, and it forms a rib cage. And the function of the rib cage is to protect the internal organs and also to provide the surface area for the attachment of the muscles, which will help in respiration, which will also help in the movement of your upper arm. So in this picture, in the center you can look at the sternum, then you can look at the costal cartilages, then the ribs and the backbone. All of them together will participate in the formation of the thoracic cage or the rib cage. The first bone we will be looking at, which goes into the formation of the rib cage, is the sternum, which is called as the breastbone. So if you feel on your chest, you can see there is a hard bone, which is the sternum. This is flat and narrow bone. It is made up of different regions. The first part is called as manubrium. The manubrium is the uppermost part of the sternum. It looks like a handle. The second part of the sternum is called as body or gladiolus. It is the middle part and is the largest part of the sternum. The third part is called a xiphoid process. It is present in the lowest region. It is the smallest of all the bones and it looks like a sword. So you have upper manubrium, middle body, lower xiphoid process. Then at the junction of the manubrium and the body, you call that as the sternal angle. The sternal angle is the region where manubrium is attached to the body of the sternum. Then on the top there is a notch which is called as suprasternal notch or jugular notch. It is the depression on the superior surface of the manubrium. Next to that, there are two notches on the sides which is called as clavicular notch, and this will articulate with the clavicles. The clavicles are the collar bones which you can feel here near the collar region, which will articulate with the clavicular notch of the sternum, and this joint is called as clavicle sternoclavicular joint. Joint between the sternum and the clavicle is called as sternoclavicular joint. That is, sternum is attached to clavicle to form the sternoclavicular joint. So in this picture on the left side, you can see the sternum. The first part is the manubrium. On the top there is suprasternal notch. On the sides there is clavicular notch. Then you have the angle of the sternum between the manubrium and the body. Then on the body you have costal notches. Then in the end there is xiphoid process. All these notches will be the region where there is articulation between the bones. Here you can see the clavicular notch where the clavicle will articulate with the sternum. Then just below that there is another notch where the first rib, the costal cartilage of the first rib will attach over here. Then at the junction of the manubrium and the body, which is also called as angle of Lewis or the sternal angle or angle of Lewis, there you have another notch where the second rib will attach. Below that there is a third notch where the third rib will attach. Fourth notch for the fourth, fifth, sixth and seventh notches for the respective ribs. The ribs will fit into the notches on the lateral side of the sternum. Then you have the xiphisternal joint where the xiphi is getting attached to the body of the sternum. The xiphoid process is getting attached to the body of the sternum. You call it a xiphisternal joint, and in the end you have the xiphoid process. So this is the structure of the sternum, that is the breastbone. Now here you can look at the formation of the rib cage. So on the left side you have the sternum. How the sternum will form the middle part of the rib cage on the ventral side. On the dorsal side the backbone is there. The ribs are attached to the sternum on the ventral side and the ribs are attached to the vertebral column on the dorsal side. So you can see here the ribs will come and the costal cartilage will attach the rib to the sternum. Rib is attached to the sternum with the help of the costal cartilage. And also on the back you will have scapula, which we will be doing when we look at the pectoral girdle. So here you have to remember that in the ventral side the sternum is providing the surface for the attachment of the ribs. On the back side the ribs are attached to the vertebral column to form the rib cage or the thoracic cage. So now if you look at the rib cage, 12 pairs of ribs will enter into the formation of the rib cage. Out of these 12 pairs, the first 7 pairs are called as true ribs or vertebrosternal ribs. Why it is called as true ribs? Because the first 7 ribs are directly attached to the sternum with the help of the costal cartilage. Because they are directly attached to the sternum, the first 7 ribs are directly attached to the sternum with the help of the costal cartilage. They are called as true ribs or vertebrosternal ribs. If you look at the 8th, 9th and 10th rib, that is 3 pairs of ribs, they are not directly attached to the sternum, but all of them will join together and all of them are attached to the costal cartilage of the 7th rib. So if you see in this picture, first rib is directly attached, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, up to 7th, the rib is attached to the sternum with the help of the costal cartilage. On the right side, you can see blue colored structures which are the costal cartilage. The first 7 costal cartilage is directly connected to the sternum, whereas 8th, 9th and 10th, all of them will fuse together, will come together and they will join to the 7th costal cartilage. The costal cartilage of the 7th vertebra, to that the 8th, 9th and 10th will attach. That's why they are called as false ribs or vertebrochondral ribs. The first 7 are true or vertebrosternal ribs because they are attached to the sternum. The 8th, 9th and 10th are false ribs or vertebrachondral ribs because they are attached to the costal cartilage. Because they are attached to the costal cartilage, they are called as vertebrachondral ribs. The last two, 11th and 12th, they are not attached. They are simply left free like that. That's why it is called as floating ribs. The 11th and 12th are the floating ribs. Now, coming to the structure of the rib. This is the picture of the left side rib from the posterior side. The first part of the rib is called as the head, followed by the neck. Then you have the tubercle, then the body or the shaft of the rib. So you have head, neck, tubercle and body or the shaft. In the head region, there are facets for articulation, superior and inferior facets. Now, the inferior facet will articulate with the vertebra, that is the thoracic vertebra. If you remember, when we did thoracic vertebra, it has got 2 facets, one on the body, one on the transverse process. On the body, it will articulate with the head of the rib. So, it is this part of the rib which will articulate with the body of the thoracic vertebra. So, the first rib will articulate with the first thoracic vertebra, second will articulate with the second thoracic vertebra. So, there are 2 facets, superior and inferior facets, of which the inferior one will articulate with the vertebra of the thoracic region. Then next, in the neck region near the tubercle, there is another facet which will articulate with the articular process present on the transverse process of the thoracic vertebra. So there also there are 2 regions for articulation in the thoracic vertebra, one in the body, one in the transverse process. Here there are 2 regions for articulation, one in the head and one near the tubercle, which will form articulation between the ribs and the thoracic vertebra. Then you have the tubercle. The tubercle is a short region which is a prominent, slightly protruded region which will provide the surface for the attachment of the muscles. Then you have the angle where the rib is turning. It is curved to form the rib cage, to form the cage-like structure. So that is the angle. Then you have the costal groove where the nerves and blood vessels will be located. So this is another view, that is the anatomy of a typical rib, for you to understand better the head neck. That is the head region is present near the vertebral column, and the opposite side, that is the end of the body, will articulate with the sternum. So there is one costal cartilage. This costal cartilage will attach to the body of the rib, and the costal cartilage will attach to the sternum to form the joint with the sternum. So you can see clearly all the required regions of the ribs to understand the formation of the rib cage. So here one more picture for you to understand how the rib, one end is attached to the sternum on the left side. If you see, one end is attached to the sternum, the other end is going back, and it is forming two joints, one on the body and one on the transverse process of the thoracic vertebra. On the right side, you can see the articular facet of the vertebrae. You can see the head of the rib is coming and sitting on the articular facet of the body. That is the first point. The second point, near the tubercle, the rib is having a facet which will articulate with the facet of the transverse process of the thoracic vertebra. So on the right side, you will see the rib is touching the body at one place and touching the transverse process on the other place and forming the joint. Here is where the joint is formed between the head of the rib and the body of the thoracic vertebra. And the neck region, one facet is there on the rib which will articulate with the facet of the transverse process of the vertebra. So students, with this we completed the vertebral column and the rib cage. Any doubts, you can get it clarified. So thank you students.